Kavira has been a long time project, and it still has a long way to go. There are so many changes that I am making, so eventually I will make a video discussing the entire project and potentially its timeline, if I can get all my dates correct. But today I want to talk about the transition from it as a hobby project to a publishing project. Kavira and a few of the other projects that I've been working on, I have been working on them for years. From the time of 2018 to about 2021, mid 2021, I had been bouncing around between different projects. And I did that because it never really crossed my mind of publishing, really. Publishing wasn't the intention. And then in mid 2021, I was working on what will eventually become my mythology story, and then I got a thought that turned it from a 3 to 5 book series into a 7 to 10 plus book series. And I realized if I was going to work on a project that I wanted to finish, not publish, but finish, I needed to switch to a project that was a smaller scale, and that was Kavira. And even in 2021, it still wasn't I'm going to publish this. I worked on it for a few years, not really worrying about it. And then 2023 hit. And my teacher at my college, FIDM, the Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandise, one of my teachers in my studio classes, he asked me a question. I should probably add some context. We worked on collections for these studio classes. We did sample collections, which was the first couple of weeks, and then we either continued on with that project or a different one to create a full physical collection where we made physical 3 pieces. And one of my collections was based on Kavira. It was based on the feather aspect of the races, and he asked me why I was there, because I had explained that I had spent so much time on that project. It was something I had been working on for fun, and he straight up asked me, why am I at this fashion school if writing is something that I've been working on for so much longer or more dedicated time to? And I didn't have a good answer for him. I didn't know how to answer that question. I didn't know what to say. All I could really say was I had been wanting to become a designer for my entire life. And so I was in school. I was in my bachelor's. I was in my first year of my bachelor's, and I was continuing the process. But over the course of the next 6 months to a year, I think, I really sat with that question of, why are you here? Why is this the school you're going to? Why are you spending this much time at this school when instead you could get a job and instead spend the hours that I was working on homework on writing? And I never really had a good solid answer. I don't think it was until recently where I really figured out why I stayed. And that was because the way my brain functions is different. The way my brain processes information is it doesn't really see something as an option until someone points it out, which is kind of ridiculous, but it's basically happened multiple times, especially in writing. I watched a video of why are there humans in fantasy and what that actually means. And I'm like, yeah, if there are humans in fantasy, they would not be top dog. They would not be the strongest race. They would not be the one that is at the top of the food chain. And it wasn't until I saw that video that I'm like, oh, that makes sense. So I've had this happen multiple times. And so in this process, I had never been asked that question before. I had never been asked the question of, why am I at fashion school when writing is something that is my passion, when it is something that I spend a lot more time doing? Because I didn't realize until I got to these studio classes that I was the only one in my class who hadn't designed anything from scratch. Everything in my childhood was getting a pattern from Joann's and physically creating it with the fabric that I found. I had never actually really designed anything until I got to school. And that's kind of a problem when you're going into a fashion design degree, and that's the entire aspect of the college. But for me, the idea of becoming a fashion designer was something that I had had from preschool, and for my entire life, that was the idea, that was the goal, that was the thing that I wanted to do. But I had never really actually studied the aspect of the career, never really actually tried to design something from scratch or do anything that didn't start from a pattern where I altered the pattern or I combined patterns to make something for me to wear. Like, it never really occurred to me that that was the thing I was supposed to do to become a fashion designer, not just a sewer. And yeah, it's kind of ridiculous thinking that I had spent 5 years but through my associates and my bachelor's, and it wasn't really until my last year that I really started to think about that. And I know that that was ridiculous. I know that that's not something that should have happened, and I know that I probably should have had someone ask me that question earlier, but I went into my meeting at FIDM when I was 18 and sitting in that room, and I handed them my folder of designs that I had made, of things that I wanted to do, of sketches that I had done, and I got accepted in. And I thought that that meant that I was good at designing. I thought that that meant that being a fashion designer and going to a school like FIDM, that I thought that that meant that I could make it as a fashion designer. And I thought that I had the skills of a fashion designer, not a sewer, not someone who does projects, but an actual designer. And I didn't. Looking back on it, I think the only reason I got into that school was because they were losing money. Within the 5 years that I was there, they went from being a top school with the main campus having 2 additional buildings that they had classes at and study halls at within a block period to only having the main campus and a single floor in a separate building, and then getting sold to another school, sold to ASU in Arizona. And it wasn't until that point that I realized I only got into that school was because they needed a body in the seat. But I didn't have any other options. I didn't have any other career aspects. I didn't have ideas or thoughts or plans. I was in my early 20s, not knowing what my life would look like, not knowing what I was doing, and I still hadn't had the idea that writing would be my career. I was going through college working on these projects as projects, not publishing projects. And getting that question shook my entire perspective of my career. I'm going to be honest, I don't know if I can make it as an author. I don't know if that's something that's possible for me. I don't know if I will spend the rest of my life with a series of part-time jobs trying to make ends meet and never actually making a career in publishing. And honestly, I think that's okay. I think I am happier doing this than I have been doing anything related to fashion. I do think that the projects where I made fabric patterns, those ones were really cool, but that was only because I had the facilities. But I really think that writing is the direction my life is supposed to go in. And yes, I will always have this entrepreneurial mindset. I might do a video on that later, but I really think that writing is going to be my main career direction. And whether or not I publish my novels and sell 20 copies per book or 20,000 per book, I don't think it matters to me. I am happy going through the process of writing my novels, paying for editors, getting it published, and just seeing it out in the world. And there are hobbies that I had in the past that I had this entrepreneurial mindset to turn into a career or turn into a job. And the only thing that has stuck with that, the only thing that hasn't become a problem or I haven't lost passion in that is my writing. Every other every other creative hobby that I had done, that I had decided to try to turn into a career, it ended up fizzling out. And writing is the only thing that I had actually kept up with. And I think that says a lot about me. I think that says a lot about my writing being my main career. And I don't know where to take this. I don't know how to end this video. So I'm going to ask you if you guys have any questions about this career, this process, this transition from hobby to publishing projects. And I want to get your guys' opinions on this direction, on where I went, on what I'm doing. And I hope you guys had fun hanging out with me. I will see you guys next time.